Há 30 anos ele fala sobre planejamento estratégico para os executivos das maiores empresas globais. Agora, James Allen está aqui, ele é autor de vários livros sobre o assunto, ele é líder global de estratégia da Bain Company e vai contar um pouquinho como ele está vendo a mudança no pensamento da estratégia hoje, o que a gente pode saber sobre talentos e sobre os CEOs. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Very nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Well, the first question, obviously, what do you really has changed about strategy today? How do you see in this long journey talking with executives?
So I've, I guess the first thing is I've been working on strategy for 30 years, and so a lot has changed. I would say when I first started working in strategy, I would say that the focus was on where to play, meaning that the executive had to ask the question, what is my core business? How do I focus on that? And how do I dispose of other businesses? And to do that, it was about perfect anticipation, meaning you tried to project out what the world would be. We used to run spreadsheets with Lotus back in the days of Lotus, where we'd have a 10-year projection of the industry. And people would get fired if you didn't project the industry perfectly. And then once you finish the strategy on where to play and anticipate the future, you just pushed it out to your people. It was, here's the strategy. Our strategy is 100 and your job is 2.8. I think now strategy is completely different. It's mostly about how to win. How do I get my organization to do things with speed? It's about adaptation, not anticipation. Rather than try to figure out things in a model, you actually work and learn by doing. And strategy is much more now about how do I pull the change through the organization? How do I co-create the strategy with the people that have to execute on it? Rather than push it at them, they now need to pull through what they mean, a radical difference.
That's why you say horizontal organizations can fail with strategy today.
So we talk that a lot of times when you talk to a CEO, you find that they're sort of lost in horizontal discussions. My exco is in a fight with other members of the exco, and my job is to align them. And they'll spend hours and months almost in entertaining themselves. And we say in today's strategy needs to be vertical. You have to get something done, delight a customer, figure out how to beat a competitor. And from doing that repeatedly, then learn what are the general lessons. But I find too many CEOs are sort of entertaining themselves with their executive committee and not interacting enough with customers and beating competitors.
And what have changed when you think about managing talent people? You said very funny, is the employee is a potent algorithms. How do you get talent from them?
So one of the things that I think is interesting is that we know we're in a new era of business. And it's easy to say, well, the only lessons we need to learn are from the platform players, the Googles and the Facebooks. And I think it's important to understand what they've done. And what they've done incredibly well is rethink what the repeatable model is of a company. But they're still a long way from sorting out all the problems. And the example I give is it's very hard in those companies to build a scalable culture when every employee is a potential algorithm. Meaning that if you think that ultimately software eats the world, then how do you treat your own talent? If everybody is just a software algorithm waiting to happen, can you really create a company? And I don't think they've solved all that yet. So I think there is a lot to learn from these companies, but I think we also need to understand that companies are built off people, and you have to have a view that people are going to be important in the future.
So culture is still the main thing for strategy.
Yeah. Culture's everything.
Doesn't change in 30 years.
It doesn't change, no.
And what do you think is the role of the CEO now? Does it have changed?
Well, so what hasn't changed is the CEO job is exhausting. We've never yet figured out how to create a CEO job that is always energy-giving and always fun. And the problem that creates is every CEO will tell you, usually second-time CEOs, they're too confident the first time, but every CEO will tell you, when I'm exhausted, I am the great complicator. I create too much complexity. When I have energy, I know what it means to be the great simplifier. I know that I have to lock myself away for 2 weeks to create this simple message that then everybody can do. So the job is still a battle of energy. I think the difference is in the last 100 years, the CEO is the final leader of the professional managerial system. And we have to understand that that system was designed to bring the benefits of scale to organizations. Now it is not simply scale that matters, but speed, and that's a completely different mindset. And the CEO is in charge of scale and speed and has to be aware that their default action is usually to give too much support to the professional managerial system and not enough to entrepreneurship, not enough to what we call founder's mentality. And the CEO's job is to balance both, not just be the champion of one.
So one of the key things in strategy today is changing the behavior of the leadership, the team of the leadership in a company.
So
how do you change this?
So essentially, everybody is today talking about agile and how to work with agile, and we totally support agile, and agile done brilliantly is exactly what you need to do. But there's kind of a myth surrounding agile that what you do is you form agile teams and then you protect them from the senior leaders, because the senior leaders are evil. And our view, and we call it microbattles, is actually the opposite. You want to form microbattle teams and then force them to go to senior management every 4 weeks to ask for resources, to ask for acceleration, et cetera. Why? Because the number one issue you need to change in a corporation is the behaviors of the senior leadership. And you can't just form agile teams and liberate them from senior leadership, because ultimately senior leadership will kill them or support them. And so we believe very strongly that part of what strategy is fundamentally changing the behaviors of senior leaders.
And how do you see the future of strategy from now on?
So
if you were a company and have to choose a business model, what would you choose?
So one of the things is I've reflected, I wrote an article on reflecting on 30 years of strategy. And one of my conclusions was, gosh, I wish I was born today. I wish, because I think the next 30 years will be an explosion of creativity and strategy. You'll have entirely new ways to think about how do we compete on speed, how do we become more agile, adaptive, fast, and learning. But also we are going to reimagine scale. And how do you benefit from scale? We're going to rediscover the experience curve. The whole idea of scale is scale gives benefits. Currently, scale is not giving benefits in many companies. You find the bigger a company gets, the worse their customer scores are, the worse their employee scores are. We have to rediscover and redefine scale and redefine speed, and you'll see an explosion of creative work and strategy.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good, thank you.